You don't have to do big, expensive shoots multiple times a year. You can do one and get all your content for a whole quarter. That strategic plan for your content provides flexibility. The most expensive thing might not be the thing that you produce to catch people's attention. It might be the next one down. They go to the website and now they've taken a step out of social. All right, now let's give them something really quality. If you can be more nimble and invest in like an annual plan, you can then roll things out, test the market, see what works, and then invest more money into the things that are working.
This is Between Two Pixels, the podcast for anyone who wants to reach and connect with their audience through content and marketing.
Hello, welcome to Between Two Pixels podcast. I am Matt Scruggs, and I'm not your normal host, but I'm the host today. I'm a senior director here at Between Pixels, and today we are flipping the script or flipping the seating arrangements to where I'm in this chair asking the questions to my dear friend and what some call my boss, Mr. Josh Peters. Hey, Josh.
Hello, Matthew.
Well, here we are once again, different spots, same energy.
Yep. People may remember the last time we were on this podcast together. For all of our dedicated fans.
For the dedicated fans.
And we talked about some of our ad campaigns.
That's right.
Which is kind of interesting because we're kind of inverting that.
It is.
Right?
And so much so that I have to do more of the talking this time to set you up for questions.
That's true. But also back then we talked about a really cool ad campaign. It was kind of a big, expensive, awesome thing that we did for a client. And this time we're kind of talking about, is that really what you need?
Is that what you need? And where does that take you? Today, we're going to talk about just video strategy and questioning, is it really broken or is it not scalable?
Okay.
Right?
Is your video strategy broken?
Yeah.
Or just not scalable?
You could even say it as a statement. Your video strategy isn't broken. It's just not scalable.
Okay.
You know?
I like that.
So we talk about video strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, obviously, there's a ton of outlets. Social media is huge. We got TV, we got digital ads, we've got email campaigns, we've got brand videos, brand films, videos for websites and everything. But do you think businesses can actually succeed with one-off videos, or is that approach just fundamentally flawed nowadays?
It's a tough question. I think they can. It just depends on how they're using them. I still think one-off videos are great solutions for paid campaigns. So for placement, maybe in streaming services, YouTube pre-roll to some extent, and potentially on the Meta platforms if you're placing ads. I think the days of kind of doing one great viral ad and that just being like your whole brand strategy isn't necessarily there anymore. I'm thinking about those things that launched several years ago, 10 years ago or more, you know, like the Dollar Shave Clubs or like the Squatty Potty stuff, like all the stuff that I think probably people remember where they're like, oh, I absolutely saw that. And it was so cool. I know in our industry, it was one of those things that kind of became like a brands being like, oh, we want to do something like that because it was so different.
We need to go viral.
Yeah. We want to go viral. We want to do some really cool thing. But those things did like leak around and like everyone saw them. Now there's just so many more products. It's so much easier to get products out, and content creation has gotten more affordable that you're just saturated with stuff. So that's less common,
right?
Where you have to do a more holistic approach across social for your brand and connect in so many different ways. You probably still need a high quality ad at some point. So I would say for a one-off project, yes, you could do that if you have a really great internal team that can help you take that, leverage it, and then crank out other supportive content with your brand. Or maybe you're working with an agency like us and you might hire us to do like a one-off thing, a video like that, a brand ad, but then you got to have support to roll across social and extend your brand. So yeah, I do think they could.
What do you think the benefits are of just like a one-off video? Nowadays, especially,
the benefits would be focusing intently on one high quality message. If your target audience is clear enough and targeted enough that you can invest in one piece of content, then I think it's worth it. If you have, so a lot of times, so like B2C, for example, like if you know enough about your audience and you have a high enough return on that audience for the investment of it creating like a bigger, more expensive one-off piece, then I think it's worth it. For B2B customers, a lot of times they have multiple audiences. It's just not worth it to invest a lot of money in one piece of content. Yeah. You really need to kind of spread that spend across multiple pieces of content to touch more audiences. And I feel like nowadays the audience segmentation has become like more and more critical because there is so much content out there. There's so many brands. There's so many products. There's so many good products that are even like just starting up because of AI and the ability to like crank things out and create digital products more quickly. I think brands have to look more and more about niche like audiences, which means that you have to niche your messaging, which means that you need more content, you need more advertising, you need more audience segmentation. So that's my short answer, I guess.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, obviously, like we'd said, the big ad is what everybody wants, but there's a trickle down effect.
Yeah.
And, we're constantly glued to or see some sort of screen often. So there has to be more draw and capabilities that like a one concept can come up with, right? Because if it's just one 30-second show piece, then that's what it's going to be. And nowadays, how does that translate to Instagram stories versus a LinkedIn page, and everything like that? In terms of just like businesses, what are some sort of tips that we like to give or sort of strategize with our clients to know if they actually want to do a one-off project? Where does that conversation start? And, how do we justify the polarization of that?
Of the two, of doing one-off versus like a full campaign. Really, it comes down to their needs. If a client comes to us and they have a strategy put together and they're like, all right, we have all this laid out. We just don't have video. We need high quality video. We want to hire you guys to create a digital ad, and then they're going to place it or we place it for them. That would be one. A lot of times that's not the case. I mean, we do have that times when that is the case, but a lot of times it's not the case, and clients are coming us to more for a strategy, and in which case we get to lay out a full plan, which is usually it's more holistic. It's like it looks more like, let's plan a big shoot, but on that big shoot, let's get our signature piece of content for the campaign, but then let's also get supportive content for the rest of socials or email campaigns or like whatever that looks like, website, thought leadership. There's all these different things that can be captured at the same time.
Yeah.
So like, maybe I can turn it around on you real quick. Okay. So being that you're directing most of those shoots, what are the ways that you see us scaling on site? Like, how do we get the most out of that one shoot day? What are the things? Because if people want to do this themselves or they're working with an agency, how can they prepare?
Prepare. I mean, honestly, like it is it just, there's the creative side of things, there's the strategy side of things, and then there's production side of things, right? Obviously, like we start with that big sort of, brand piece, which kind of just like, it goes back to whenever I'm coordinating with either marketing or if it's an internal video team, it's beyond like the why, right? It's like we all know everybody wants like everything covered in terms of just all the platforms, all the distribution. And that's great. We want to help that, right? But then it takes like, okay, well, what's the purpose? Why are we doing this? Like, why for the what? And so whenever I'm preparing with this, that's just the core sort of thing. It's like, okay, typically we have your 30-second ad. We know there could be a 15-second cut down. And then we're like, okay, well, now we need to understand why this messaging is important. So that's where that strategy comes in. So that's a constant through line. I always go like, from a creative standpoint, we're working with this theme, and that sort of enables me with direction or just constantly like relaying like the importance of why we're doing this with our crew, with the crew or who I'm, working with on set, even talent. But when we go into those, what this really means, it goes beyond this like creative strategy into like a production planning, right? I remember a few years ago when the boom of social media has obviously been happening for, 15 plus years, but I feel like it was in the late teens where like Instagram really started hitting off and everybody was like, oh, 9:16 aspect ratio was going to be a thing, and then 4:5 and then 1:1. And so from a production standpoint, we're hit with that logistic standpoint of saying, okay, our shot list for this one 30-second ad started with like 6 shots in a day. Yeah. No big deal. Now we have a 15-second shot, 15-second ad to think about. Okay, we might need to alter timing and blocking and just our shot design. But then we started thinking, okay, well, now we've got to sort of like shoot wider. We have to light things a little differently. We have to know our space and just like how things are playing in camera, not from a creative standpoint, but just from a flow on set. Yeah. And then we have to think, about, how is this going to piece together in the edit? So I think from our end, it just goes to show just how we are able to prep and think big picture. And, now, 10 years ago, I wasn't going to be having crazy conversations with people who are going to be animating graphics or my editors, who are piecing this all together. It really became just sort of this all-encompassing strategy to where, it's not necessarily dependent and we are steering the ship appropriately. Yeah. But it is more of a consistent through line of preparation, strategy, and the why of what we're doing. Yeah. So it makes me feel better as a director and as a producer whenever I'm making, in prep to just like lay everything out and just say, okay, this audience is going to see it this way. Yeah. And even when we go into cut downs or specific messaging, we just all know from a creative standpoint why we're doing, and also
so like knowing what your
making.
Deliverables are. Yeah. Because that is something that I would say too, just to kind of piggyback on if a client or if a brand is trying to do this on their own and you think, all right, cool, we got all our social figured out in-house, but we're going to hire a production company to come in and shoot this ad. And then you don't do the planning you're talking about. So if that production agency is more of like they produce stuff for TV or they're not familiar with social and that kind of aspect, you can get yourself stuck in a position where you don't have derivative content and all you have is this great ad, and they might give you the footage and they might give you the version and you're thinking, oh, it's cool, we'll just convert that to like a vertical. Yeah. Well, it doesn't really work that way if you haven't planned for it to work that way. Because there's definitely times that like you're talking about, changing the way it's filmed, creating more space, knowing that you have to go to a 4:5 or a 1:1 or a 9:16. Like all those things are dramatically impact the way the ad looks. Yeah. And then also knowing that you get into it and you're like, well, the 30 seconds aren't working. We need 5s. We need pre-rolls. We need like all these other things. If you don't have them, you're just trying to go back and recut something. It might not work out very well. Yeah. So it's just something to think about for companies that maybe are still doing that one-off route with their video production. If you want to try to get multiple versions of things, consider that planning aspect and make sure you're giving like really strict and like formatted deliverables that you want from your production company. So,
and it's all just like, I think it's an approach where we just want to make the best stuff possible always, and of course that means different things for different clients and what they want. But yeah, I mean, it's just like when we're framing up for like a close up, we're like, well, we need to back it up to like a medium close up,
Push
and so, and then there's just ways to make it work ultimately, but you never want to be in a phase of, when you're filming, let's figure it out. That's a cardinal sin for our editors. Fix it in post. But even just like getting there and instinct is always great, right? We run on that often. There's problem solving all the time on set. That's just part of the game. But just knowing, like, going in with a clear through line, that's the way to maximize that one day you have with us on set. And just that, we're there to always offer solutions and knowing things up front. But like, I feel what's great about us from that strategy perspective is we are able to take that one idea and just say, that's great. you need, this can cover so much if we shoot it this way. If we tell the story this way, like I said, that theme, that through line is something that sort of leads the charge. I think my job as a director, there's that producer mindset and the director mindset, which I have to really bounce back and forth between a lot, is like, what is the sanctity of tone that we're giving to our clients or to a brand? Because I as I've grown as a filmmaker and as a producer and a director, here it's just like, what is the experiencing we're offering the audience? Yeah. Because that's always what we forget about. We always think about money, actors, like getting things ready and prepped, which is integral to everything. But it's just like, at the end of the day, we can't explain to the audience what we're giving to them. They're going to see this, while they're, sitting down watching a football game or just, doom scrolling on Instagram. How do we stop them and get them to watch? Or if they have time if it's 1 second that they see, what is going to like stick with them? Which I believe is a good segue into some of the other things we have. What do you think, can a amazing one-off video still make a good impact in marketing nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, I think it can. It's kind of like I was saying, like, if your audience and your audience is I don't want to say small enough, because you could have a big audience, but maybe your audience persona is targeted enough. Like, it's men of a certain age, or it's like women of a certain age who have the same pain points, then I think you can. I think it can be, but it's tough, because when do you really want to invest like a ton of money into something someone might just scroll by?
Yeah, right.
It might not be the first thing that you do. It might not be that the most expensive thing might not be the thing that you produce to catch people's attention. It might be the next one down, where you're like, oh, they go to the website and now they've taken a step out of social, and then you're in there, you're like, all right, now let's give them something really quality. But so many other things, it really depends on their product. Like I said, streaming services is another place, grabbing people's attention during ads there. YouTube pre-rolls. I mean, I'm a YouTube premium person, so I'm not watching ads on YouTube, but I hear people still do. But that's just me. So yes.
I mean, it's like, I always think about what is it that sticks with us. And I feel like 15, 20 years ago, we all had those ads that were like bringing up Starbursts, commercials, high school, berries and cream kind of thing.
Yeah.
You can cut that out. But it's like, what sticks with people. And obviously, a few months ago had the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That always was the prime time to me. That is where the ads are going. That's like, you're going to get it one time. It's going to be there. It's going to stick with you. And even those nowadays, they know it's not as memorable as it used to be, right? Yeah. You're not going to be like, we always, the day after the Super Bowl come in.
Talk about that more. It'd be like, talk about that. Wouldn't even really talk about the halftime show. No, talk about the ads.
Exactly.
Rarely even talked about the game.
Yeah, right. So we've got the big Super Bowl ads. Not everybody can afford, a couple $1 million for one 30-second ad. When we shift from just like a singular project to a program of content, what is the real difference between the investment in a one-off video and a content program that we tend to offer our clients?
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of some of the things that I've been mentioning that brands might do on their own, where they're producing more of a strategic plan around social or around other channels, and then leveraging that single piece of content. And that's the main thing. So when you're looking at it holistically, you lay out all of your target audiences, all of your audience personas, and then as you start to think about your brand messaging across, whether it's a campaign or it's just a product launch, like whatever those things look like, or just general like awareness on social, all of that stuff gets tied together when you're in a program.
Yeah.
That's the way we, shameless plug. That's the way we try to do it. Like I said at the beginning, it's like we were glad to work with with companies for one-off things, but it is harder for us to be successful because we can never really guarantee success, but it's hard for us to help a company get the results they want from revenue perspective or sales perspective or whatever, brand awareness, whatever it is, unless we can make recommendations across all of the channels and then all of the strategy. Because the way it works nowadays, it's like you can, best laid plans, you're like, we got great creative. Yeah. You roll your creative out. It doesn't get the results you want from like a campaign perspective, from a clicks, from like an engagement, from a sales. Well, you have to then adapt. So a lot of this, it's hard to take a lot of money and invest it in one really great ad unless you're going to do something targeted like in TV.
Right.
But if you can be more nimble and be in a plan and invest in like an annual plan of content and strategy and brand and marketing, you can then roll things out, test the market, see what works, and then try to massage certain things that work best with your target audience, and then invest more money into the things that are working.
That's a good idea.
So it's a little bit more of a strategic approach to getting analytics, small investments like firing bullets at things, see what sticks, and then once you get some results, then you can double down on the things that are working more. So it's really hard to do that if you're not in a plan.
Yeah.
And so,
it's not more content, it's smarter content.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And it can be a lot of content, but it's not necessarily just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Yeah. It's more like being strategic, having a plan in place that's on brand, but then kind of trimming back the things that aren't getting the results and making subtle adjustments. There's so many examples of that on social media of like things that you can do in pieces of content where you're like, let's do video, let's do infographics, let's do stills, let's do carousel images. And then there's all this different strategy around like what works, what gets engagement, and then following trends, but maybe not in the way you'd think. Like if something is really popular and that format or style is getting the most engagement across social, then because it's maybe different or it hasn't gotten a stigma with being an ad. Because, the way it is now, you see certain things and you might just scroll right past it because you're like, I know what this is.
Yeah, right.
And so if you can take that and twist it and then do something that creates more engagement, well, it's nice if you have that flexibility. If you're not married to like $100,000 ad campaign you just created that isn't getting traction. So it is important to consider that, and just looking at your audience. Maybe your audience is likes to see two people sitting there talking like podcast style, maybe like this. Maybe that works. Where it's meta. Yeah.
Okay.
We're in an ad right now.
Right. You ever seen Deadpool?
Exactly.
Well, that's like, I think it's what's great about partnering with us. Shameless plug. Why are we here, right? It is that strategy, right? And you brought it up really well. Rarely do we like make something and we're like, oh God, this didn't work. But it is a way to just sort of say like, on with our people who are on a content plan, usually it's a year long for a lot of my clients, but we are able to take, this sort of, I don't want to say it's a trial, but like the first sort of thing that we can make is a litmus test for just seeing like, how is your audience responding? How can we adapt to that? And how can we take advantage creatively of the partnership that we have? When we partner with these clients, we really do partner and we know the brand. Yeah. I feel like it's one of those where, just us being involved with a marketing team or with people on the other side for clients we're extension of their company in some sense. And we're able to just like actively problem solve and dream and create together. Yeah. And I feel like I love being in on those conversations because I'm able to just sort of assess, okay, there's those wants and everything. Everybody wants maximum views and engagement and clicks and all that sort of stuff. And that's what we want too. And we just are able to see where a brand needs to go. And it's an active sort of reporting and analytics and figuring out sort of what's next. And in terms of that, we are able to take a budget,
Mm-hmm.
strategically, you know, whether it is a, you know, if a client comes to us on a project based, we're saying, you've got this much money, we can obviously invest in a 30-second ad. How does that trickle down to other outlets? You know, how can we maximize your available budget, whether it's a one project, whether it's a year long of 10 videos? But what do you think actually, how do you actually scale video without just spending more money?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to that pre-production that you talked about, and it can be tough at times because it's a little bit of a paradox, right? I'm saying, like, you need to test some things and then respond based off of how engagement works with the audience, but you still need to have things to test, and the more things that you can test that aren't super expensive, then the better, the more data you're going to have. So going into a shoot, let's say you're creating a brand overview video for social or for web or for an email campaign. You might be like, all right, this is going to be great. We can hit talking points out of this and create a social series of reels that we can roll out. Or you can then re-leverage that same shoot day and say, like, we're going to do like thought leadership. We're going to set ourselves up as an authority, and we're going to put those on LinkedIn, and we're going to put those on our website somewhere in the buying journey, when maybe it's like someone's on the website and they're like asking a question, and you can show that you have the answer. So there's so many ways that you can use those things. But going in, you got to kind of look at what the competition is doing. You can look at what the biggest pain points for the target audience are. And it doesn't have to all be video-based stuff. I mean, you can then take that same kind of messaging and apply that to design pieces, whether it's like PDF downloads or like go to the website, give us your email, get this free guide, all that stuff. I mean, email a strategic like email campaign where, you know, give us your email, we'll give you all this information. There's so many things you can do with content, but like if you don't have a plan that's tied back to like your strategy, to your goals, that are like whatever you're trying to achieve, whether it's leads or building your list or literally getting people to get to your website to just buy right then. You know, all those things matter, and it's different for every client. So it's really hard to just be brought in to produce a single video, as opposed to having more of a strategic plan. And that's why it's great to work with an agency who is doing your marketing and not just thinking about your video as a one-off thing. Personally, I mean, I feel like it's a better solution. But yeah,
I think too, what's great about the way we operate is we're just able, as an agency, rather than just a production company or, you know, a design firm or whatever. I can literally, it's part of the process, right? To take a few steps to talk to our VP of design and talent.
That's right.
Or just a graphics team or the marketing team, and say, hey, I have this one shot that I'm thinking of in this ad, or even just a video, and say, I think, you know, this has the legs to either be a 6-second, you know, video ad where we can incorporate graphics, or, hey, we love the composition of how this is shaping up. We think this could be a good design for, you know, some static posts we're going to make. Or, you know, vice versa. If we're in the prep phase and creatively just kicking ideas around, there's ideas that have come from marketing or from design to say, hey, it would be really awesome for a banner image for this website if we could, you know, utilize this composition and turn this into a moving billboard, essentially. And so I think that's what's really great about us, is that leverage of creativity, scale, and budget to just maximize results and give clients, you know, what they need and what I think audiences will really draw to.
And I think one of the big takeaways is, if you're going to work with an agency, or if you're working in a strategic plan for your content, the biggest benefit is that strategic plan for your content provides flexibility. If you aren't, and you're just going all in, but like you have independent contractors doing different things, like you said, design firm, maybe someone's giving you some marketing strategy, placing your ads, someone's doing your email campaign, you got a production person you work with. What happens when you need to pivot because you're like, these video ads aren't working. We need to
Yeah.
do design. Well, then you got to kind of go back to the design. It's exactly what you're talking about, where we have a more holistic approach, where if you need to pivot and change something, it's very easy for us to take the things that came out of the video and turn a video shoot and turn those into design pieces, or vice versa, because everything's tied back to some strategy with messaging. It just provides flexibility for our clients that, depending, because we're at the mercy of the algorithm in a lot of ways. When you're talking about organic content and on social, and there's, it can be complicated, especially if you're just trying to do a lot of growth through social media, and that you need to have the flexibility to be able to pivot.
Right. And that's where those one-off thing comes, because when we talk about like the shoot day strategy, right? It's with that prep, we're able to really just like got a shot list, we've storyboarded out some stuff. Our graphics team has said, hey, it'd be awesome if y'all could get one of these shots, or even a still frame for us to kind of amplify. But I think for me, whenever it comes to that production day, figuring out what is there, it's that there's times where I have to like take a step back and make a call and just say, hey, we're gonna try this. What do you think of this idea? We'll send some shots of a frame and just sort of relay ideas. So, of course, being involved in a strategy program, being involved with a content program versus a one-off thing, we've got way more strategy. We've got a cohesive brand that has been well prepped and everything like that. When we talk about scaling content, right, can you scale content with quantity without sacrificing quality?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you absolutely can, but I will say that you don't always need to scale with quality in every capacity. Because we've talked about in other episodes, on social, sometimes doing something lo-fi can be considered more authentic. So it really depends on what the strategy is. If you're smart about how you leverage a shoot day, you can get lots of pieces of content, and that's really good, and that's super helpful. You don't have to do big expensive shoots multiple times a year. You can do one and get all your content for a whole quarter. But I do think if you want to pay it, if you're paying attention to trends and you're paying attention to what other brands are doing, and you're keeping an eye on what works and what doesn't, and how people interact, staying open to lo-fi content is smart. So it's kind of like a yes and no. It's like, yes, you can still get great high quality content, but maybe we also want to be open and consider doing more lo-fi content just to open up like brand authenticity and make things feel more approachable.
I think that goes into the reach, right? And defining what like quality is. Obviously, if you're going to ask the filmmakers, or like, me, I'm like, yeah, man, get me some master primes and like, a cine camera, and we're ready to go. But then it's just like, hey, this ad might benefit from one of our talent taking a cell phone and doing, a selfie like video. I don't know what to say, just turning the camera on them and saying, oh my gosh, I got this new vitamin that I'm taking, and it's great. It makes me feel better. And that's where the trends come in. And we got to think also just about how like the media people are consuming. And I say media purposely because, I'm a big movie guy. Love watching movies and everything. But as said earlier, we're constantly seeing things on our phones, on our computers. All these sort of campaigns are out to reach us and what is connecting with us. And so quality is a subjective sort of frame of mind, because in the terms of marketing, it's just like, nowadays a billboard, might not be as good of an outlet as a organic social post where you have just like an, influencer style video. And so I think like what we're able to do, we, alongside our marketing team, we have like our strategy, our social department, and really leveraging sort of the trends and just understanding the constant shifts and pulls and everything. And, we've seen in our social media, we've got these fun sketches that we do and everything, things that are scripted out, and those will do really well. But then we also have just like little one-off like cell phone footage stuff that just kills with people. And in terms of just like that polish versus speed, you know, and just that sort of like rapid fire approach to creating and outputting content, you know, what do you think are the strategies to have like, okay, we have this specific big one-off brand. How does that trickle down to an organic social post, or just, you know, do you think it's beneficial to have like a through line with a theme, or, you know, is it okay to have just this random, you know, wacky fun thing that somebody pulls off?
Yeah, it is tricky. Like, you don't want to do things. I think you have to be careful if you've never done lo-fi content before, or following a trend or doing something crazy. So you really have to be thinking about the brand and the audience and what they're used to seeing, so that you can shift your tone. You know, if things are working polished, because there's so many ways to do polished content. There's photography, right? There's animation, there's video content, so many different things you can do on social for that. And if that's all that's all your brand has done in the past, to shift over to a more organic feel is definitely going to feel a little rough around the edges sometimes, you know. Things that are brands that are really tightly controlled from a brand guide perspective. So I think it's good to consider that, for brands to consider the stuff you're talking about. You know, the more iPhone style stuff, or like, I guess just, I don't know what you call it, just like authentic, or just like influencer style or something. What it comes down to with that type of content is it a good idea? Is it engaging? The same rules apply if you're doing lo-fi content or high quality content. When we create ads, like, you have to have a hook. You have to have something to grab their attention. You have to have the right story framework, essentially, in order to engage the audience. It's the exact same thing with like viral video content that you see. Something about it in the first 3 to 5 seconds engages people, and they're like, what is this? And then it kind of carries over. The thing that is tricky now is that the format starts to communicate authenticity more than what is being said. So like, I think this is why you've seen a lot of people switch to like ads that look like they're on a podcast. You know, you see it, you're like, this is a fake. You start watching, you're like, this is a fake podcast. This is an ad. And this is kind of stopped, but it was for a while. It was like, they're making it look like this guy was interviewed on Joe Rogan or something. They literally do the Joe Rogan set behind him. This isn't it, but you can see it's like the curtain or the black wall or something. And then it's like, he's like talking about his product. You're like, you never see the person ask the question. You're like, wait, this is a fake podcast, because that podcasts were seen as authentic. Well, now it's, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's changing. I mean, people may have starting to get podcast fatigue, because everyone has a podcast, including us. But
not my idea, for the record.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll cut that out.
We'll cut that out. We can leave it in.
Okay.
Authentic. It's authentic.
That's
if
right.
you leave it in.
Lie. I don't lie to you.
But no, I think those things change quickly. Like, it used to be that things lasted for a long time. And as an audience gets fatigued with a certain format, you want to have the flexibility to change that format. And you also want to be open enough with your brand to be adapting to formats that do work. So if you go all in on big expensive ads, and then you're trying to fit those into a social strategy that it doesn't work, and then you're mad because you didn't get the results you wanted, that's probably not the best solution. Being open and like going, all right, we need to have a team that's evaluating what's working, following trends, following what other brands are doing, following like audience engagement. All of that stuff is way more important.
So if a business really wanted to move away from one-off video, what is that scalable practice to where we can leverage content to create something that's long-standing for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a lot of the things we've talked about. It's thinking strategically, getting a plan together. So even if you're not working with an agency, you can go to our website and you can watch our story framework series for free, and you can download the little tool we have to help you do a story framework session. Because what a story framework session does, it lets you identify your target audience. And our framework is truth, problem, tension, solution, vision, invitation. So you identify the truth statement for each audience group. That would be like kind of like the hook. And then that has to be tied to the problem. And then that tension. So the core problem, so your audience might have a ton of different problems that they're facing. You want to identify what those are and match them to the personas. Get the tension, which is the reason the problem hasn't been solved. The solution is what you provide, your product. The vision is the things you're talking about. It's like how that solution ties to the bigger picture. Right. So what is it? Is it like is it like your company's purpose? Is it how it helps how your solution helps make their life better? It can be lots of different things. And then the invitation is essentially the call to action, which just has to be appropriate for every place that you're connecting with the audience. Maybe you're not selling right on Instagram. You're going somewhere else. Maybe it's getting them into email. It's different for every brand or every type of, like, whatever your product is. So you can do that stuff on your own and then basically lay it all out through like a card sorting exercise, and then start to figure out, all right, okay, now we've got it all mapped out. This is what we do with clients, right? I know you've been a part of those before. Start mapping out messages to content pieces and start to build a plan together, and then be thinking about your budget. So we do this and we know what budget we're working with. So that helps us figure out what we're going to do for the year and be real strategic. But you can do it on your own. But laying those things out, seeing your audience, seeing the messaging, and then start laying them across each other and be like, okay, I think this would actually work really well as a video series. This would be great as a PDF. This would be great, to do in person when we're talking to people through like sales decks or slide decks. Let's use this language. Let's do these offers. Let's kind of like prioritize certain things in a certain way. Different for every client, but being strategic about it and tying it to like a big picture framework of some kind is really what I would recommend.
Yeah. And you brought up different for every client, which I think is so great about what we do, is that just like we're ready to work and really figure out your brand and what's necessary. Yeah. And, start with a framework and just sort of see how it all kind of works its way into every department that we have, every bit of strategy. It informs how we're filming things, how we're writing our scripts, posing interview questions and all that sort of stuff. So it's just this all encompassing approach that, we're able to leverage our creativity with our framework to really maximize the content that we're creating and making it more than just a one-off thing.
Absolutely. And I say final statement would be stay open and stay flexible and be willing to adapt to trends or shifting sands, essentially, because of the way things work in the marketing landscape today.
All right. So, Josh, thanks for chatting with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And thanks for watching. Feel free to check out some more of our podcasts wherever podcasts can be found.